Thanks, David. This is a meeting of the Village of Sherwood Hills Plan Commission. Tonight is Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. We'll call the meeting to order. Brian, just want to confirm that the meeting has been properly noticed in compliance with the open meetings law.
It has.
Thanks so much. Item 3, approval of the minutes from the November 12th, 2024 Plan Commission meeting. I'm hoping you had a chance to go through those. If so, I ask for a motion for acceptance.
I move we approve those minutes.
Thanks, Kara. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jim. Further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead, Mark. Thought you were voting early.
Oh, no. I do have a concern, which is the last sentence of the FAR discussion. It reads, this item will continue to be on the commission's agenda until resolved. And I was just a little concerned about what the word resolved means in this sense. If resolved means the possibility that the commission decides to leave the FAR in place as is, then I'm fine with that sentence. But it could be read to mean that some other resolution. So I just wanted to clarify that the definition of resolve does in fact include the possibility that the commission could just move on. That
it does from my standpoint. I think.
Me too. That's how I read it.
Yeah, that's how I read it.
Okay, I'm good then. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. All right. Other questions about the minutes? Otherwise, we'll vote again. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 4, public comments. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on any issue? Any public comments? David Sykes, do we have anyone? Well, no, I guess I would see if there was anyone else on. So, all right, not seeing any. Why don't we move on then? Item 5, report on upcoming soil testing at University Bay Fields, West Campus Playfields. I know, Brian, we were expecting a rep from UW to join us, at least by phone. Do we want to talk about the issue for a few minutes, or wait for her to join, or move on with the agenda and go back to the item? What's your preference?
Why don't we just go on with the discussion and see?
I don't think that's me. Can you repeat that again, Brian?
I was just going to say, let's go on with the agenda.
That's Earl. You got two things on right now.
Yeah, we see two there.
Sorry, David, what's causing that?
I just muted Earl's second
Okay.
screen. That's going to kill the refer, but
Okay,
Earl, you'll
good.
have to unmute when you want to talk.
Okay. All right. So I'm sorry, Brian, you were saying?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if anyone heard. I was just going to say, let's just move on with the agenda. We'll come back to it, see if the representative's on there. If not, by the second item, I'll just cover what was going to be said.
Okay. But yeah, and I have, I kind of created my own summary comments on it and maybe some questions for clarification. So hopefully we'll get a chance to share those, at least in open session here, and then those questions could be passed on. Item 6, continued discussion on accessory dwelling units, ADUs, policy considerations, and community comparisons. We haven't done much more on this. You'll recall at the last meeting, we kind of went through kind of a draft model ordinance and also discussed the possibility of doing a town hall sometime in the first quarter to talk through some of these issues. I can tell you, I reached out to the village engineer and said, you know, based on the draft model language we have so far, asked him if he could identify how many village properties could accommodate ADUs under the framework, and the total number of ADUs that could be constructed in the village without exceeding the current floor area restrictions. And so I don't have any information to share on that. I anticipate we will have that for the January meeting. You know, I shared with the engineer that it makes sense to incorporate criteria such as the accessory building setback requirements, total building square footage, non-buildable areas, and any other relevant factors he thinks would improve the accuracy of estimates that we provide the Plan Commission. And I'm just trying to get a handle on, I think the Commission's trying to get a handle on what's a realistic total focused on the potential for 1,000 square foot ADUs. So I think that'll be invaluable for our discussions moving forward, and something that we would obviously share with the public during a future town meeting on the topic. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Any questions, clarifications? Okay. Welcome, Mark Sundquist. Good to see you. All right. I don't see Brenda yet. Item 7, continued discussion of possible changes to the floor area ratio calculations in the zoning code. In your packet is a brief history of the development of the Village of Sherwood Hills floor area ratio ordinance by Ben Ferrado. And I know Dave's available here to answer any questions, provide any clarifications. There's a brief history of variances for the last 6 years, including some detail associated with that. There's also an email, the email you may have just received from Tessa Martin, that something had come up tonight. She was unable to make the meeting, but she weighed in, provided some input on this item. So hopefully you'll get a chance to see that. I think all of us were copied on that email. Dave, was there anything you wanted to share about your memo? I wanted to provide that opportunity.
John, no, I think my memo kind of speaks for itself. I just kind of holed up down in the village hall meeting room and at the fire station, looking at old village bulletins in the 2005-2006 period, and going over stacks of village board meeting packets for that same time period.
Yeah, yeoman's work.
Well, it was interesting.
Yeah.
I guess my advice, if you're listening, anybody on the Plan Commission or on the board, leave breadcrumb trails for those in future years.
Well, I appreciated the historic context. That was, much of that was before my time, in terms of the backdrop and some of the initial steps. How the ordinance development kind of proceeded from there. I thought that was helpful. Some of the impacts and the adjustments. Of course, you covered the 2017 state law change, which I was familiar with, when the legislature restricted municipal conditional use authority, requiring a shift to the Board of Zoning Appeals for fire exceptions, which now require proof of hardship. thought that was well covered. And then some of the conclusions, that the FAR ordinance has been effective in preserving neighborhood character and ensuring diversity in housing sizes while maintaining fairness through clear standards. And, some of the challenges with respect to zoning codes and some of the changing legal and community dynamics. So I'm hoping members of the commission had an opportunity to review. To the extent we could discuss it, we could talk about any questions or clarifications any of us have on that ordinance history. This is an opportunity to raise those. The effectiveness of the current regs. How well has the FAR ordinance achieved its goals? If we're looking at any potential changes, I will mention that looking at the brief history of variances, I think we've had 9 denials in 6 years, the recent history, and only one was related to FAR. I thought that was interesting. Those were my takeaways to that expertly prepared memo and the history that received. Are there other thoughts, comments? Mark, and then I see Craig Weinhold.
Yeah, like you, I was struck with the variance request report and the fact that only a single variance had been requested since 2018 with respect to the FAR, and that the decision on that had been unanimous in terms of the denial. And I guess I just have to echo the sentiments Tessa expressed in her earlier email today to us, which is, if this issue is arising so infrequently in terms of variance requests, and apparently the one time it came up, the board was united in its opinion with respect to the request, do we really want to open Pandora's box, given the history and how controversial and how much time it consumed on the part of the Plan Commission and the board to get to the point where we are today? So that's just what I'm struck with.
Thanks, Mark, for that. Craig Weinhold.
Yeah, I spent the weekend or part of the weekend just kind of looking at properties. I think Mark had also was going to go out and take a look at some of these properties and try to get a sense of what FAR is. My normal outlook is, it seems to like it should be a good thing. It sounds like a good thing, but is it actually doing what it intended to do? And I got to say, after looking through properties on Google Street View and looking at the ratios and exploring things, and I sent over a presentation that everybody can load up and take a look at. I can't see any rhyme or reason to it. There's some properties that I consider, oversized, uncomfortably oversized. Excuse me, my video is obviously not showing my lovely face. Oh, well, you'll see my head. So some properties are within the FAR ratio, but they still seem to be way too big. And other ones are well over the FAR ratio and seem to fit just fine. And this isn't just grandfathered properties, but also new properties. I also question if FAR is even enforced. There's a property in that presentation I sent, it's slide 6. It's on Edge Hill Drive. And that's I think a brand new construction, certainly within the last 10 years, and it exceeds the FAR ratio by 300 square feet. And it wasn't in that list of variances. Are people just ignoring FAR? I talked to another person who remodeled their house in the last 10 years, they took into account FAR in their plans. But it almost, and maybe Dave, maybe you can shine some light on, is FAR actively enforced in any form today?
That would be a question for Brian Mooney, David Sykes.
Okay, David's on. Oh, Brian is on too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Brian, I can answer that if you want.
Okay, go
but-
ahead, David.
Any permit application for an addition or a new home or anything like that gets reviewed by the village engineer, and he applies the floor area ratio limits and the height limits to that, and makes sure that everything meets the zoning regulations before a permit's issued. If it doesn't, then it has to go to the zoning board of appeals now to be reviewed, and if it's approved, then it can get a permit with the approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's, I could be wrong. It maybe it predates FAR, but it seems like the construction is newer than FAR, and it exceeds the FAR ratio. But just looking through the other properties, I understand what FAR is trying to do, but it seems like it might be the wrong mechanism to do it. At the same time, I definitely don't want to throw it out until we have something that's even better or more considered to the problem that it set out to solve. But I'm not convinced that the FAR ratio today solves what it was intended to solve. So I will stop there.
I see Kara's hand up, and then I think Shabnam wants to add something, and we're also going to give Mark Sundquist an opportunity. So, Kara?
Thanks. I just had a quick question about Dave's data. Dave, so is that every variance that was adjudicated?
Yes, I went back and did all of the variance requests back to 2017 when we had our computer crash and lost some of the records. But that was also when the conditional use laws changed as well.
Sorry, what year was that?
2017. So I went from 18
Right.
forward. That's what we have records for.
Right. Okay. And does anybody know, so this modern house on Edge Hill, this bad offender at 1125 Edge Hill Drive is right across the street from my house. And I thought it was a remodel, but was it a total reconstruction? Does anybody know offhand? Maybe you know, John.
I don't think that was a new construction, Kara. I think that was a remodel.
Okay. And I mean, your house is on here, John. I'll note.
Yeah.
So
But we didn't exceed the FAR ordinance.
okay.
But we could have put a
It's not loading here for me, so I don't know what it's there for.
the maximum amount of FAR ratio, I think for us was 2,994. That's what I ran the allowable, and we ended up like at 2,400. We were 300 or 400 or more off our calculation.
So maybe it's a data discrepancy because Craig has you over. But
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Craig, I didn't see the presentation. Did you send that to the full plan commission? Or did I just miss it?
He just sent it.
Just for the start, I just did a reply all. Let me make sure that you are on it.
Yeah, and when did you send it?
7:08 p.m. So
Yeah,
Oh.
you didn't get it before the meeting.
Oh, okay, all right.
not before the meeting.
Yeah, I was on the road all day, so I had not looked at it. So
And I have to stress that it's not a comprehensive. It's just me looking through Google Street View and trying to line it up with the Excel spreadsheet that we got last month, and looking for extreme cases of FAR mismatches.
yeah, and I think it will be good, Craig, to maybe share that with the village engineer since he does the calculations and compares it to the zoning code, and get him to comment. And I anticipate they weren't able to attend tonight's meeting. they will be available at the January meeting. I know there were some conflicts tonight. So I think it would be good for us to have them review it as well as the full commission and maybe have some of these questions answered. I'm gonna move to Shabnam. I think Shabnam, I saw your hand up first, and then Mark Sundquist.
I just wanted to acknowledge that what Craig is saying is accurate. Not every house that had permits was reviewed for the FAR and whether they meet the FAR ordinance or not. And that was a conversation that I had with Brian, like, well, what about this house? They just renovated. What about this house? And he mentioned, well, I was never asked to review the FAR for these homes. So there are, I wanted to say that Craig is accurate in that, in his description of that.
Okay. Thanks, Shabnam. Mark Sundquist. You're mute. There we go.
Okay, yes. I would just say that we have to be careful because the calculation of the floor area ratio, the area of the house is not the same as the real estate market uses. I mean, there are different exclusions. So you can't look in the, real estate listings or something like that at how much the area is because they're calculated differently. And they're, so it's not the same. You have to assume, I mean, the engineer looks at these and from the very beginning went through the rules very carefully. And just as you said, John, your house by the calculation you did and the engineer did was 300 feet under, but it may well be that your basement or your garage is counted by the real estate company and it comes out a different number. So, and the other thing is that, some of these houses that look out of place may have been before the ordinance was passed. This was not out of the, it isn't something the Plan Commission and the Village Board decided to do. This was something, as Dave points out in his brief history, that this was a big issue. And the Plan Commission spent years trying to figure out how to do it. So yes, there may be some houses which look like the FAR didn't work, but some of those might have been before. And again, it's a very complicated thing because it depends on the lot size, and some of the lots are much smaller. I mean, it isn't easy to assess all these things without going through the ordinance and having drawings and so on. So I think you can try to come up with a better mechanism, but we spent a lot of time on that. We looked at other communities that had taken steps like Palo Alto and a place in Illinois, and we did an awful lot of work on it. And we also decided that it would be more lenient for smaller lots. So this curve that shows the area of your house compared to the lot size, it gives you quite a large amount up to a certain lot size, and then the slope increases or decreases, you're allowed less. And when you get to a very large lot, you're allowed even a smaller increment per area of the lot. So there's 3 different portions to it, so that it says you may have a gigantic lot, but you don't need a 7,000 square foot house or a 10,000 square foot house. So we did it to not only give more leeway to smaller lots, but also to make sure that we didn't just turn the village into a completely exclusive place. No one can live here unless they can afford a 4,000 square foot house. So it was equality and diversity was actually part of this ordinance. So,
thank you, Mark. That's helpful. Craig, and then Shabnam.
Yeah, appreciate that, Mark. Getting to the obviously a lot of houses were grandfathered in, and that's fine. So depending on how things were approved, 50 years ago, things were a little bit different, but FAR would ban quite a few houses today that seem just fine to my eye at least, and that's where I have a problem. If we think about what FAR was supposed to tackle, I think it was really having your house be overshadowed by your neighbor's house through a remodel or reconstruction or something. The idea, and especially Lake Mendota Drive, where a one-story house would all of a sudden have a 3-story tall vertical wall, at the minimum setback possible, overshadowing your house. And it seemed like that was sort of the situation it was trying to head out, and it tried to do it in a fair way. But I'm not sure it really fits all lot sizes. Wide lots, wide shallow lots, certainly might be an exception. And I'm just wondering if FAR should take into account height. If we did think about any changes to the formula, if it should be, like terraced step backs as the house goes up, so you don't have just walls that are 3 stories tall. It has to, the third floor area ratio, for example, would have to be 20% less than the second floor, or some formula like that. So just trying to think about ways to maybe improve that FAR calculation so that it has more targeted effect.
Can I interject on that?
You got it, Bart. Go ahead.
I think that we spent an awful lot of time on height, and we came up with different heights. The code was, what was it, 35 feet or something like that, measured from the curb. So we spent a lot of time saying, well, a peaked roof versus a flat roof. If you had a 35-foot flat roof, it would be much more overshadowing than a peaked roof. So we came up with different definitions for different roof size. We also took into account that the lots aren't level, and some go up from the street and some go down from the street. And what we had on Lake Mendota Drive was houses that were in that 24 or whatever feet at the street, and then they were 40, 50 feet high at down by the lake, because the lot sloped off. So one person came and said there was a battleship built on both sides of her house, and they completely, in a canyon. And so we worked with heights, we worked with setback, stepping up, and we said if your lot goes up in the back, then you have leeway to raise the back of the house, but you don't have leeway to raise it at the street, and vice versa. If your lot goes down, then you have to step the roof down. So I think, Craig, to be fair, we did put in those kind of steps very, very carefully, but they can always be, tweaked and made better, but we didn't ignore that.
So I don't see those in the FAR ratio calculator. I see that in the setback requirements.
They're in the ordinance. They're in the ordinance. The ordinance has height rules that we spent a great deal of time doing, and that they don't maybe come out in the floor area ratio, because that's the floor area calculated a particular way. But with the building height regulations, they were one regulation, and it didn't matter whether your lot went up or down. And we changed that, and we said it follows the slope of the natural slope of the land, and we really struggled with that, but we wanted to make it better.
I completely believe it. I mean, the zoning is one thing, and that seems to be very specific and focused on those tactical things, height, setbacks, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But the FAR ratio seems to be not working on top of that. I'm thankful for all the zoning code. That's fantastic. But the question is whether the FAR ratio, which is what we're discussing, is adding to that, or is it just noise? And from what I can see, the FAR ratio doesn't seem to, I think it could use some tweaks or some rethinking. I do not want to make changes rashly, of course, to it. But I think the FAR ratio, if we look at construction over the last 10 years and maybe revisit it a little bit and say, hey, which ones got through that we don't think were appropriate, but still made it through the zoning code, how could the FAR ratio, have helped to steer that construction to be better for the neighbors?
I was just going to add just a short story. When we were building our house, obviously we could have put a 3,000 foot, box on that property, which is less than 8,000 square feet. We chose not to do that. But I can tell you that our builder came to me and said, John, your house is too tall. You're going to have to get a variance. You're going to have to go to Plan Commission and go to the board. And I was like, there's no freaking way I'm coming to this commission or the board where I was serving with my hat in my hand saying, please, could I make the house 2 feet taller? And I came up with the idea that he had a much higher angle roof coming off. And I came up with the shed idea, and they ran the numbers, and it was way under the height requirement. And that was the answer, because there was no way I was going to find a way to, as I said, go to a meeting with my hat in my hand saying, I just need 2 feet. So it's going to be good to have Brian comment on some of this. I think it's going to be good for all the, Mark or Craig, I appreciate you putting that together. I'll be interested to kind of review it. And I see in the comment or the chat, Dave Benferrato, for the height sections of the village code that were implemented at the same time as the FAR ordinance, see village ordinances, section 10-1-110D. Thanks, Dave, for that.
We actually included some really useful pictures and illustrations that let the layperson understand what the ordinance says.
Yep. So I think for purposes of the next meeting, would be good for Brian to review stuff that you put together, Craig, and the comments from tonight's meeting. That's one. Two, to make sure that everyone on the commission gets reacquainted with those height sections that Dave mentioned. I'll make sure that those are made available as part of the packet moving forward. And then we could, tonight was not an action item. It was just kind of a discussion of possibilities. Shabnam, I see your hand up.
Yeah. Am I okay? I'm not muted. So I kind of was the one who brought this to the Plan Commission. And I appreciate the institutional knowledge, and I appreciate Dave's memo and listening from Mark about how difficult it was to get the ordinance in place and all the work that has gone into it. I'm not necessarily advocating that the ordinance must be changed. That is certainly an option. It doesn't sound like the commission is interested in exploring that, which is fine. But all I'm asking is that if there is a house, whether it's one house or 5 houses, it never has mattered to me whether it's one person or 20 people. One is enough. That if you're not bothering anyone and you're just going to do something in your backyard and your neighbors are okay with it and you're not obstructing anybody's view, but you have a need, it may not be extreme hardship, but it's a understandable need that we would entertain it or consider it. I feel bad when we follow rules and there's harm, but there's no benefit. So I don't know. There's other ways to explore how to, achieve what's fair to everybody. I think if I was a family, I would appreciate it if somebody would consider if I need another bedroom for a kid. It's kind of hard when you've got kids and they're in the same bedroom. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And I hope we're not talking finances, because there's actually a condo for sale on Cornell Court in Shackleton Square, 1.5 million. I mean, this
come
place
on.
is too expensive to live in Sherwood Hills. 1.5 million for a 2,000 foot condo. It's insane.
Uh,
Yeah, that's insane.
Right. Can I
Go
just,
ahead, Mark. Yep.
I think that, Shabnam, in the beginning, we did put that escape in there. And we had a number of people who wanted, extra 200 square feet, extra 500. And that was really killed by the legislature. So we had that in, and it would be nice if we could figure out a way to recreate that. But again, if we loosen the rules or change the percentages, then that would let a few hundred feet here and a few hundred feet there. But might also, that would be one approach, I suppose, to take a look at these sizes that we have. We have a plot that says this much, this much, this much, and we could bump those numbers up a little. But you have to be sure that it doesn't say, oh, that house that no one really liked would have been possible now, or would be possible now. So tweaking is fine. And it's a shame that the legislature said, oh, we don't want people to have conditional use permits anymore because that's too flexible, so.
That's a good point. And back to the earlier discussion, Shabnam, I'm really interested to hear how the ADUs could affect those floor area ratios as well, those calculations. If that's something we decide to do as a community, which would actually increase the amount of housing available and opportunities for families to accommodate, other family members. And so that's something I think we want to continue to go. I'll go Dave Benfrado and then Craig.
Sure. I did, and this all took place, this whole discussion started before I joined the board, and I was a newbie, for the first 2 to 4 years. I didn't know which way was up. So I was just on the board when this was adopted in 2006, but I do remember it as just the issue just took the air out of practically all other issues that the village was trying to tackle. And Peter Hans was president at the time. I did speak with him. He was not able to, he was busy tonight, but he mentioned, just to give you another backdrop of the situation that we were trying to address, and we came up with the best solution we could. And like Mark said, we built in what we thought was a hot steam relief valve, the conditional use process where equity could come into play and neighbors could sit and listen. And we had some of those sessions where the neighbors said, no, we do not want a tall structure, blah, blah, blah. We had other cases where the neighbors said, well, it's a small 400 square foot addition. It's 1 story. It won't block our views and so on. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a good role of municipal government to play. But then, like Mark said, the state legislature called for an end to that. They revised the conditional use law. You can read the article in the League Bulletin. They revised it so that municipalities, if they were going to restrict somebody's use of their property, they had to specify exactly what the property could be used for. 25 foot front setback, 25 foot rear setback, 15 foot side setback. They wanted it black and white, no equity, no balancing of interests allowed. Thank you to the Republican legislature. They took that away from us. Mm-hmm. And then just one final anecdote. Peter Hans remembers this well, and he can drive through the village and point which large houses went up before this ordinance came into effect, and just how the neighbors were terribly upset about them and so on. And then he left me with one anecdote which I had not heard, and there was a fairly large parcel on Topping, and somebody and again, as the first sentence of my second paragraph talks about, the early 2000s, interest rates were low and home lending restrictions were relaxed, and it was the start of the housing bubble that actually burst in about 2008. So somebody bought a fairly large parcel that had one house on it on Topping, and their entire goal was to build two houses to the maximum size they could and maximize their investment and then sell both houses.
Right.
And those houses went up and they overshadowed the lower houses on Tally Ho, much to the chagrin of the residents down on Tally Ho. So just backdrop.
Thanks, Dave. Craig, your hands up.
Yeah, you talked about accessory dwelling units. The zoning set forth back then did exclude 500 square feet of the first ADU from the FAR calculation. So I'm really happy that people thought about this so completely back when these rules were being written. They really were thinking ahead to make our life easier 20 years later. So
appreciate that. All right, so unless there's nothing else, I mean, I'd like Brian to be at Brian Berquist, our village engineer, or Tim, his associate, to be here to answer some more questions. We'll provide some more resources prior to the meeting, and we'll look forward to another opportunity to discuss it. And Craig, I'll look forward to reviewing what you pulled together, and we'll make sure we get that to the engineer as well. And we'll have a productive and focused discussion at our January meeting. David, Mark, appreciate all the insights you were able to provide. Shabnam, appreciate your passion and interest on this. And Craig, I again appreciate the work in the trenches on this as well. That analysis will be helpful for the commission moving forward. I know we've got a rep from UW for item 5, report on upcoming soil testing. So Brenda, hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
We decided to move ahead with the agenda until you could join us for the meeting. So
thank you.
So I know you were in the car and it was going to be complicated getting you to join us sooner. So I was glad that you were able to join us. This is a report on the upcoming soil testing
That's
at
right.
UBA Fields, the West Campus playing fields. There's a memo in your packet with some frequently asked questions. As I understand it, this is a first phase of its improvement project for UBA Fields. There's going to be some soil testing activities that will be commencing as we speak here in December, and involving a soil boring rig. The memo identifies some goals. Apparently this was approved as part of the 23-25 capital budget to enhance play surfaces, drainage, irrigation, amenities such as restrooms and drinking fountains. There was background provided as well about the need for the upgrades in the Ruckwell master plan. And then some highlights in the frequently asked questions in terms of the testing activities, some of the historical considerations, some of the archaeological monitoring they conducted in some specific areas, ensuring compliance with the Wisconsin State Historical Society guidelines, and then some next steps. So I had a few questions for clarification, but I wanted to see if, well, one, ask our honored guest, Brenda Gonzalez, if there was anything else she wanted to share about the memo or about what's planned there.
Thank you so much. Probably you have seen already some of the equipment that actually was there out there December 6th. And also introducing myself, Brenda Gonzalez. I'm the Director of Community Relations for UW-Madison. Certainly not an expert. I wanted to make sure that we had a connection as you were getting the information. So certainly here representing UW-Madison, but with the idea that you will get the information, you will think about, or you will think that you will make the connection with the project and the information that we are sharing. Certainly some of the photos are stock photos of the machine, so there's not necessarily all of them are like from the field. Although now we do have one more that maybe I can share later on during the week, to make sure that you have all of the current information. And it is very correct, as you mentioned, we share this information in the Joint Campus Area Committee with all of you. And sorry that I don't remember exactly the date when this was shared, but certainly information has been out there. I wanted to make sure that as we have very specific questions of maybe the work, the testing, the results, that we will have that plan in advance, of course, to bring the experts to be able to answer all of those more detailed questions. But right now, what I can share with you is that, of course, already you have seen some equipment maybe out there December 6th, and you will continue to see more December 13th. Where there's going to be a second number of testing that will take probably about a week. And then it will take about a month or so to see the results of those testing. So until the new year, we'll have a more concrete report. That's why I didn't want to take too much of your time, because we wanted to make sure that we have everything in place. With this idea, we just wanted to make sure that it wasn't anything surprising, right? To see the equipment, to see what we had out there. Certainly what I understand of the feedback of the first December 6th testing, we didn't have any interactions. There was nothing that went wrong, if you will, or any updates other than the experts went ahead, had the testing, and hopefully we'll have once again in December 13th, and then the report in about a month.
Thanks, Brenda. Questions for Brenda or about the memo, Mark?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Brenda whether there was any plan, whether approved yet or not by the university, to add lighting and or fencing to the property. As you may know, that was a lightning rod for this community when they thought that fencing might go up, or that lighting would mean that activities were taking place on that field during all kinds of late hours. Right. And so I think that's where the residents are going to be concerned right now. They see this activity, and to the extent it's transitory, it's testing, it'll get done. I think the residents will understand that. Yeah. But if it's a prelude to something grander, larger, and particularly if it includes the lighting and fencing and the like, that's going to be an issue for the community. So
thank you. Thank you, sir. I completely understand. Certainly I was not at the time that Gary Brown, probably you remember, Gary, great friend, that of course during the master plan also, right, agreement, that certainly you probably received some of that information. My understanding is that none of that has been part of the conversation. I really don't know additional details about what is exactly other than the enhancement, right? I know that you probably have heard of the West Campus District Plan. That information is just in general, right? What is that West Campus District will look in 5 years and 10 years and 30 years. I have a hard time thinking about tomorrow. So it's hard for me to think about like 30-year planning, but I understand that that is the idea, right? Getting information about what we have in front of us or underneath us in that area to start thinking about planning. But again, You're absolutely right. I don't think that there is any conversation about that specific project that you mentioned. It is hard for me to answer additional information because certainly that's why we were waiting for the testing and for the results and then continue to have the conversations. But not only that, also having a very specific engagement plan of making sure that as we move forward with some of these plans, that we are able to connect and engage with all of you.
Okay, and then my request would just be that if those issues do arise, if as you continue to study it, someone contemplates the possibility of fencing and lighting and the rest, that you come and address the Plan Commission, the board, because it's certainly an issue which the residents here are concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that as soon as I have information from leadership, that I will be able to say, not only myself, again, not necessarily having the background in my next life, I want to come as a urban designer or architect maybe, but I will make sure to bring the experts to the table to make sure that we can answer those questions once that we have the information. So absolutely, thank you for that reminder as well.
Yeah, Mark, that's a good point. Is you may recall, I think I mentioned this to Brenda, the largest attended meeting that I've been a part of in 12 years was the night the board addressed this. And Mark, I'll just add, there were concerns about artificial turf and also amplified music or a PA system. So those were the four primary areas: the fencing, the lighting, potential audio PA, and the potential for artificial turf. And I think
my list wasn't exhaustive.
I think we have 127 residents attend that meeting. So
wow. Mm-hmm.
And they were between us and the door, Brenda.
Right.
What was your question? I'm sorry.
What was that year that meeting that you mentioned? Do you remember?
I don't remember. Maybe 2014. I could go back and look at that.
No.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think of the time frame, right? I mean, the timeline.
I will say this. I did reference that occasion in a letter I sent to the university, which is the first thing I did as village president with respect to the West Campus development. We talked about the sustainability and the build out, but I did reference those specific concerns because I can tell you that's what I was hearing at the door as I went door to door in the last campaign. Craig, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was at that meeting as well. We can start a laundry list of the complaints.
Yeah.
But a fifth one. So the artificial turf was a big one, but also the plan that was floated had a parking lot right in the middle of the field and a new access driveway to Weissman Center.
Right.
And it was mentioned that the rec fields were going to be a money-making enterprise, renting them out. And so we were concerned with, all hours, which is the light and the amplification. But the AstroTurf or the artificial turf is what, when I look at the soil testing that's going on, I know there's a lot of reasons to do soil testing if you're building a building or something like that, but a big reason in this setting is so that they could set up drainage for AstroTurf or artificial turf. And so it makes me, Brenda, if you can make sure you have that list and say, hey, folks in Sherwood are going to be thinking about that. Anything that moves forward with artificial turf needs to be probably justified, and obviously maybe some fields need it. The soccer field already has it over there. But we don't want the whole thing to be covered in artificial turf just because it allows more reliable rentals for profit.
Craig, I was going to add that the soccer field that the UW team uses, that's actually natural grass.
Oh, that is?
Yeah, that has the short fence around it.
Yeah.
But it was engineered to drain accordingly and to meet all of their different standards. So, but it is a natural grass field.
It's a beautiful field.
It is. It absolutely is. And so I think that was one of the things we heard from board members and from residents is, boy, you're able to engineer a natural grass field to drain properly. Maybe that's the answer for improvements that are going to happen in some of the other areas. So I share that accordingly. All right, other questions, thoughts, comments for Brenda, for commission members? Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Brian, have you heard from the residents about this issue? I mean, would be a little surprised if you hadn't yet, since all this machinery is already being deployed, and knowing the history of this, I'm sort of surprised that the residents haven't raised a red flag already.
Yeah, I don't want to jinx myself here, but so far I have not heard from anybody. And hopefully that is a good sign that it has not disrupted anything and there have been no concerns. But this was the whole point of bringing Brenda here tonight and sharing this with the commission, just to make sure, for full transparency, everyone was aware of what was happening, and making sure that that information was shared and questions could be answered if anyone did have any concerns.
Yeah, I think it just kind of begs the question whether the commission should get out in front of this, the village should get out in front of this with the residents and explain what's going on, or whether by doing so we would cause more anxiety than currently exists. So I'd leave that tough call to you, but I can see it either way, right?
And certainly, depending on that answer, in the future, certainly we would be able to then, hopefully with more information, to connect and bring those experts that can answer more of the questions. Not only to answer the questions, but also maybe thinking about what is the thought about the future. Because again, sometimes I think about something happening again tomorrow, and then when in reality we were talking about, as I mentioned, 30 years from now. But again, I think it will be important to have those lists of questions, certainly thinking about the minutes that I will be able to take back and then reconnect. And you have my information. I think it's also part of this information, my email and my contact information.
Craig. I'll just share the chat with you, Brenda, in case you can't see it. My wife is already chained to a derrick down at the fields. I'll tell her it's okay to come home.
Oh.
All right.
Thank you.
Nothing like a little levity at the meeting. I appreciate that.
Thank
All right.
you.
Any other comments, thoughts? Otherwise, we're coming towards the end of the meeting. Okay, Brenda, thanks so much for the information
Thank you
provided and for being here tonight and answering questions, and appreciate your good work steering this accordingly. So, and I know you'll stay in close contact with Brian Mooney as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian, for helping me organize this. So appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk soon.
All right. Be well.
Bye. Thank you.
All right. Item 8, future agenda items. We have electric vehicles ordinance, fence code referral from Zoning Board of Appeals, Locust Drive multi-use path. I think that item is really going to be informed by the safe grant that we just that we received. But we haven't done anything else with EVs, correct, Brian? Or with the fence code referral? I just don't remember.
With to my knowledge, we haven't brought either back for discussion, but I did want to add that I have been contacted by an entity inquiring about the permitting process related to EVs and the abilities to add charging stations at a site within the village. So that is something that we might want to resume conversations about in the very near future here.
Okay. Well, why don't we at least have an informational discussion on that at the next meeting, and maybe Vanderwall could pull together some model ordinances on EVs for some of the surrounding communities. We could take a look at that and then have a focused discussion on because I definitely want the ordinance in place if someone's really looking to to do something in the village, either associated with the business or something else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other future agenda items for Plan Commission members? Craig, I see your hand up.
But just on the EV topic, NPR had a story tonight talking about how most charging is slow charging. So there's this issue about slow versus fast, and fast, of
Right.
course, requires huge amounts of electricity. But for example, in our setting, slow charging, would probably be satisfied. So it'd be great to hear from Vanderwall what the ordinances are like, but we don't want to be putting in ATC towers into the village to do fast charging where it's not needed.
Right. It's a good point. Okay, we'll look forward to that, that discussion. Any other items for future agenda? Our next meeting is, tentative meeting date is Tuesday, January 14th. Virtual meeting via Zoom at 7 o'clock. Motion for adjournment. Mark, thank you. I need a second.
Second.
Kara, thank you. Ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. We're adjourned. Everyone have a wonderful holiday. Appreciate your good work on this and look forward to our next meeting.
Bye, everyone.
All right.
Thanks,
Be well.
everybody.
Take care.